A vocational profile is a holistic method of assessment that concentrates on someone's skills, abilities, attributes, and aspirations. It looks at what somebody can do as opposed to what they cannot. Historically, people with disabilities were assessed on, what they couldn't do. But vocational profiling flips it on its head and looks at, the value that people can give. It looks at an individual's whole life. So it doesn't just necessarily focus on what they have previously done in the past in the workplace or in education. It looks at their hobbies and interests. It looks at what they want to do and why they want to do it, why they're interested in a particular job or sector.
Vocational profiling. So that's just a fancy way of saying getting to know somebody incredibly well and actually recording it. So it's really important about making sure that you're recording the things that people are telling you. But it isn't, again, simply about what job do you want to do. It's about getting to know everything about that person. So what are their dreams? What are their aspirations? What are their strengths? What are the things that they might find challenging? How are they going to get to work? What's their circle of support look like? And then once you've got that really rich picture of who that person is, then going out and engaging with the business community.
So a vocational profile is used to get to know the participant, to get to know their aspirations, get to know their skills, what they struggle with, what they've done before. And it's really important that a thorough vocational profile is done so that we can match them to the right employer, and to make sure that where they end up is where they want to be and that they're going to enjoy and be successful in their next job. It's co-produced with the participant who's on programme with us for supported employment. So we sit down together, we look at their skills. We also try to go out in the community as well and do things so that we can observe and they can demonstrate maybe some of their skills, and that can be part of the profiling process.
We look more into their daily routines, their skills, maybe skills they've already learned. We look into their likes, their hobbies. We look into absolutely everything about this person that we can.
So if you're doing vocational profiling well, at the end of that, you'll have a good understanding of what their capabilities are, what their skills are, what they may be able to do, what they won't. Obviously, you'll always be building on the vocational profiling, but you'll be using that knowledge from in your meetings immediately, and you'll be building on that. So for example, with action planning, thinking about things like asking them, what do you want to do? And if they aren't able to communicate as effectively, thinking about other ways that you can gather that information, whether you're accessing circles of support, whether you're out demonstrating, so taking observations in their voluntary placement or observing them traveling, or even just seeing them typing sometimes on the computer can be give you a good indication of what are their IT skills. So they might not be able to tell you everything that they can do because that is such a big, wide question. But actually, if you're getting them to lead the meeting, if you're getting them to demonstrate what they could do for job searching, where are they looking? How often are they looking? Where are they saving it? You observing, you'll see loads of skills that they have just by doing those things, rather than assuming it's quicker for me to do it. I'll show you, you're missing out a big opportunity to gather lots of information. So then you can use that information to, judge your support. So you'll know whether it's appropriate to say, what is it you want to achieve? Some individuals will be able to give you an answer for that. Sometimes you know that you'll need to take it step by step and break it down a bit more.
Some people you work with might have learning disabilities, autistic people may not be able to conceptualize or give the information there. So it could be that you might give questions to the individual and say, go off and discuss this with a significant other person in your life. It could be that you might give the individual like certain pages of the vocational profile. And the important thing is that the individual understands that it's their document. It's, I think that is one of the reasons, that's one of the things that I think support and employment stands out above other services, that, it's the individual service. Like one of the key values is its choice and control. We don't do support and employment to people. We do it in collaboration with them. And the individual's needs and wishes, particularly with the vocational profile, should drive the process. And as well as that, it looks at who else is important in the individual's life and what level of information can they give with the individual's consent. So it might be a question of sitting down with parents and carers and talking to them about, what they feel their son or daughter could bring. I think that there's important things around actually framing the questions and not necessarily taking mum or dad's answers. It's about getting the information out from the individual. Good practice is if someone else gives you information about somebody, or they say the individual might say something particularly poignant, that you could put it in quotation marks. You could use different coloured pens or different coloured fonts for different meetings. It's important that we see people in different environments. So we might meet someone in an office. We could see someone out in the community. It also looks at, the perceived support needs when someone moves into the work. So if somebody, for example, was going to a work placement or a job and they didn't know how to get there, then the organisation would know that they might need to travel train somebody. If somebody, for example, didn't have a very supportive home life, that it could be that the organisation might recognise we might need to support somebody to get their uniform ready for work. So it's a holistic method of assessment.
It can take a number of weeks. I think you have to meet a person a few times to get to know them, because somebody could be having a good day or a bad day, and they might say something differently the next time we meet them.
It's a living, breathing document. A vocational profile is never completed or done. And it should be conducted over a number of meetings, because when we first meet people, we may not feel comfortable when we meet people from all walks of life. We may not feel comfortable in talking about things in a great deal of depth. So a vocational profile is designed to be compiled over a number of different sessions. When it comes to action planning, it's important that although the individual centre of what we do, that it should be a partnership. So it's about looking at the long-term and short-term goals and identifying what you both need to do in order to reach those long and short-term goals. So, for example, if you're working with somebody and they wanted to work in a field of employment that you had no knowledge of, one of my colleagues was working with a chap who wanted to write video game music, and my colleague knows very little about music composition. I mean, the individual he was working with had a music degree, and he said, what do we both need to do? So it was sometimes it's about giving the individual maybe some research targets, looking at breaking down the steps, I suppose. And also, I think it's about making sure that the individual understands those actions. Because if you told somebody to go off and do something and, they didn't understand necessarily, they weren't able to conceptualize why or what they needed to do, it would be easy to say they've not reached that action. So it's about ensuring that the actions that you set are smart.
So some individuals you would be able to say, what do you need to do by next meeting? So you've said that you want to do this. How are you going to get there? What do you think we should have down as actions? And as a starting point, I'd recommend always sort of having giving the client space to reflect. One, so that they're taking ownership and they're feeling like they're in control, because they should be. And two, it's an additional time for them to process information. Often you can assess, actually, have they picked up all of the things that we were talking about in the meeting, or is it better to clarify some certain points before we end? Then coming back to those documents and reviewing. Sometimes you will have had actions and 2 weeks later you meet again and they haven't been done, but then you need to investigate why they haven't been done, because that will also help to inform what support is needed, if any, in terms of moving forward. I like to say, although I know it doesn't sound very good, but it's about thinking about giving as little support as possible in order to achieve the goal. Because things like writing CVs, I've seen loads of advisors will just write out the CV because they've done hundreds of thousands of them before, and it's very quick for them to do that, instead of taking sometimes a couple of weeks and taking that slower progress for the client to do it, and to do it with them and to support them. But at the end of it, they know what's on their CV and they really own that document, rather than, you know, meeting with an employer and saying, oh, I don't know what's on that CV, I didn't write that, which I've heard loads of times in, you know, meeting with clients for CVs that have been written in school, for example. So it is giving as little support as you can in order to still achieve the goal. Sometimes you may need to give extra support, and sometimes you'll find that you can reduce that down further. But if you're always giving as little support as possible, you know that they are doing as much as they possibly can. You know that they've got the opportunity to learn new skills and to develop, and they are in as much control as they possibly can be.